We're here to talk about developing critical thinkers. So thank you for taking the time to join me today. I was very impressed. I didn't think a lot of people would still participate, being on a Saturday, being on Zoom, but I'm glad to see that you guys are here. So hopefully you can tell that I am very laid back and relaxed. I want people to participate. I want you to feel free to share things on your mic. So feel free to open up and say something. My PowerPoint is not going anywhere. There it goes. Here we go. So feel free to type in the chat, to open your mic, to make comments. I'm definitely open to that. But I think this gives us an opportunity to see what it's like to be an online learner, and as well as overcome the glitches of what it's like to teach remotely and all the technology things and the curve that we're all learning. But I hope you get some ideas, not just around developing critical thinkers, but also around what are some good practices for teaching remotely. Yay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read the chat and do my presentation, and man, the multitasking that's going on here. Okay. So let's just talk a little bit about the overview of what we hope to accomplish today. And I also want to say that there were several tracks that we created for this, and one of them was critical thinking. So there is a critical thinking presentation during every session. So I certainly don't think that I have all knowledge when it comes to the idea of critical thinking. And so hopefully you'll get some good ideas of, from what I have to share. Sorry, reading. And hopefully you'll get some ideas. Yes, my name, thank you. Somebody's saying, did I realize my name is still on the presentation? Yes. And people are still joining the room. Sorry. Okay, we're about to go on to our next slide. So let's just talk about, okay, our overview of what we're gonna do today. Hopefully, oh, you printed out, I was supposed to say this, printed out the poem, The New Colossus. If you did not, in the chat, I put the link to Padlet. You can go there and print it out, or you can work without it. I think I picked a short enough piece that it will be okay if you don't have it in front of you. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do a brief definition of critical thinking, and then we're just gonna go into the ways to develop critical thinking. So my objectives, that you would understand what it means to be a critical thinker and have several ways to help your students develop their critical thinking. So the first way that we're going to talk about, whoops, sorry, my definition. Critical thinking, I think most of us know, it's just a systematic way to process information, to think about ideas, and to make better decisions. It's really just taking an idea sometimes and turning it over in your mind several times, knowing that you'll get better ideas the more you do something. Okay, our first way to develop critical thinking is to incorporate the learning process. This comes out of the book, We Were Born to Learn, and it basically talks about the fact that there is a very natural thinking process. The brain is always looking for patterns. It's trying to remember things. It's trying to process. And so you have to be aware that there are ways that the brain is naturally thinking. And I'm going to give you a puzzle in the next slide, and I want you to think about it, but I also want you to think about how you're going to use some of these ideas in your own classes. Okay. So I want you to kind of open up my chat somehow. Okay, on the next slide, it is a puzzle, and I want you to either type in the chat when you've solved it, or you can open your mic and solve it either way. Okay, so get ready, and let's see if you can figure it out.
Should I yell it out?
Yeah, yell it out.
Here comes the bride.
There we go. Somebody solved it. Okay. There it is. Okay, so the brain is constantly looking for patterns. So what's going to happen is when you do it again, the brain's going to have realized the pattern, and it's going to be quicker. So let's do it. We're going to do another one. Same thing. You can shout it out, or you can type it in the chat. There we go.
Home on the range.
There you go. And there it is. The brain figured it out. And can I tell you, it took you half the amount of time to figure it out the second time than it did the first time. The brain saw the pattern. The brain started to figure it out. So I want you to think about your courses, what you teach. How do you see something like this being useful? Knowing that the brain is looking for a pattern and having the students figure something out. Somebody open your mic and tell me, how do you see this working in your classroom?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Antonia.
All righty, Antonio, thank you for being brave.
It will work. I just wanted to give you another perspective about how it might not work.
Okay.
Because it works when the students are conversant with the idea or the knowledge. But if they are not, it becomes frustrating. Like this home on the range, these are not areas of my cultural background. So I did not know home on the range, what that means. Here comes the bride. Okay, yeah, but I've had it a few times. So I think sometimes critical thinking has to have some basis for students to be able to follow. Because this second one was really difficult for me to get. So I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say here.
I definitely do. And I think that's something that we need to be aware of different cultures, different backgrounds. People are looking at things differently. And they're not going to see
coming
it.
from. Yeah.
Sure,
so that's what I just like to add to that. Not that this is not good. It's totally great. I know I'm a math teacher. I try to use things like this, but sometimes I tend to forget that some of my students might not have the background, and then that becomes frustrating for them.
Sure. And so it's not just about the puzzle, it's thinking about like, what would this look like in math? Because I think math is a perfect example.
Yes,
Who's that, Jocelyn?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, by the way, for rescuing me this morning.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you made it.
Schedule, which is hectic. Yeah, I'm about to say about math. Yeah, regarding that, and because math is really a skill where you have to really set an example for them to be able to follow the patterns and the logical order of your lesson. So you have to really set an example for them to be able to see the pattern. But of course, one skill set for one will not be the same skill set for the second one, as Antonio was saying, that they should know the difference of one problem set to another problem set, but at least you can be able to set them as a starting pattern. So, because linear equation is somewhat not the same with quadratic, but they are pretty much similar. I think that's how it works.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jocelyn. There's a comment in the chat that says, in culinary arts, we teach methods and hope students apply the methods regardless of the ingredients. Definitely. There is the connection. So don't get caught up on this. Think about the brain is looking for patterns. The brain is looking for repetition. And if you can do something several times, then the brain starts to say, oh, I get it. I get it. This is a little different, but connection. And that helps with critical thinking. I have another question that says, will we have access to the PowerPoint of today's presentation? Sure, I will share it with you, no problem. I can send it out in an email to everyone that is registered. I can also put it on the Padlet site, which I linked at the top of the chat. And you can go there and download it, change it, do whatever you want with it. One thing that I think education should be is just the sharing of knowledge. So nothing is, I'm not like, oh, you can't use it. You can't use it. If it helps you, use it. It's all yours.
Yeah, this is the same pattern in music as well.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's constant analysis. I teach music for the college. It's constant analysis and synthesis and application of learned skills and application of learned skills in multiple contexts, and to be able to call that information up rapidly at sight. and in regards to sight reading and that type of thing. Knowing, but not only knowing the patterns horizontally, but knowing them vertically as well, as they both interact and occur at the same time.
I love it. Great.
I was going to say something about the Gestalt principles. I don't know if you already mentioned that, but this would be a great lesson for Gestalt theory and Gestalt principles as our minds try to formulate the whole story in a comprehensive contextualization through visualization and continuation, even when there are blanks that are present. Our brains try to fill those in, and we do assimilate information a lot more easily when it's anecdotal and it has a flow, and so our brains try to find that flow even when there are spaces and gaps.
Thank you. And I'm not familiar with, here's something I have no problem saying when I don't know something. I don't know what the Gestalt theory is. Can you explain that a little bit?
The Gestalt theory is the theory that our brains tend to fill in information when there is apparent information missing, so that it can actually formulate an opinion, a thought, a concept, and try to have a comprehensive understanding of the visual information that is being presented to it.
Awesome.
And an example of a Gestalt principle is phi phenomenon, which is the actual lights that look like they're moving, like on a marquee, or a common fate where all the figures look like they're going in the same direction or doing the same action. It's like those little word games they give you on Facebook. Find the M among the W's.
Okay.
That would be common fate. Fate would be you see them all as W's.
Okay.
Or if you see like a picture with some of the lines missing and your brain just fills in those absent lines to fill in the whole picture. Yeah.
Awesome.
Or closure, and you see everything. You see everything. You tend to make the missing part, put the missing part in.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Who I saw, I had to pull you up, Dr. Campbell, but please feel free to share your name before you start, or your department or something, because I'm like, I hear a voice that I can't see.
I'm sorry.
I'm Dr. Campbell with the communications department.
Awesome. Great.
I'm Dr. Ravita. My doctorate's in music, but my master's in clinical psych, and I worked in DC as a clinical chief psychologist for many years.
Great.
This is Larry. I'll give you an example. I work in the IT organization. And can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. I'm looking for you.
So
Okay, but I don't have a picture.
I have a good illustration of how I use this in my classes. I teach students in some of my beginning classes how to count in different numbering systems. For example, we grew up learning how to count in decimal. And so when I start to teach them how to count in another numbering system, for example, hexadecimal or binary, I show them how the connection between how we subtract and add in decimal is exactly the same as you would do it in any other numbering system. And they find that rather fascinating, because when they look at a new numbering system, they're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, you literally have been trained on how to do add and subtract in a new numbering system, because we've always done it in decimal, and the pattern is exactly the same. Nothing changes other than you have more numbers.
Whoops. Sorry. Whoops. What happened? Oh, thank you. I love that. And I love the ideas. I love the connection. And this is it. Just thinking while we're processing through this. I want to go on to another activity that you can use to help with critical thinking. And this is the 3-step process. This is out of the same book, We Are Born to Learn. And it talks about that you take an idea and you turn it over several times. And you do it first by yourself, then you do it with someone else, and then you do it as a whole group. Knowing that the idea continues to develop as you work with others. So I have a question for you, and hopefully you have some paper and a pencil. I'm old-fashioned. You should be writing something somewhere. No. But you have 1 minute to write your answer to this question, and you're going to be sharing what you think and what you say to someone else after this. So what do you think of when I say immigration? So I'm going to click to the next slide, and it's going to sort of be a 1 minute countdown. Oops, sorry, my clock stopped for a minute. That's all right. You needed extra time. I'm like, what happened to my clock? Okay, so I want you to, in the private chat, pick somebody's name and write to them what you said and get a response from them. So in a private chat, just pick somebody's name and chat. Oh, sorry. And you also have a minute for this. Ted Herman, are you doing anything? I can see people. Jocelyn, are you chatting with somebody?
I didn't know you were going to call me out, but I'm busy now.
I know, right? I'm about to scroll through and who else I see. But everybody's about to get called out. You can always chat with me if you don't like, I don't know anybody. Chat with me. It's all right. I'll respond to you.
I just picked a name.
Yeah, just pick a name.
I was looking for Jocelyn, but it was taking time, and I just picked the name I saw.
Ah. Sorry, you get a little bit more time again.
Edward, respond.
I think when I'm doing something else like private chatting, all of a sudden the clock stops. So I'll just pretend when our minute is up.
Antonio?
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for your response.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing.
No, not you. No, I
Oh.
was speaking to Edward.
Oh, okay, good. Because I was like,
Hello, can you hear me?
sure can.
I'm speaking to Antonia.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning. How are you?
Okay.
You're supposed
Well,
to be private chatting in the box.
I don't know
over the
how to
mic.
do it.
Oh, okay. Click on the drop down beside your name, and you see the names, and you pick my name. Or click on the drop down beside everyone.
Yeah, if you click on participants, if you see that, the chat box should come up, I believe. But that's all right. We'll go ahead and come back together. Now this, it was individual, then it was partner, then it was whole group. So I do want to hear, hopefully you got a chance to talk to somebody. Ted made me laugh. That's why all of a sudden I was like, ah! And I was like, oh gosh, my mic is on. I'm yelling right in the mic. And I don't know if he'll share what, I'm not sharing it. If he wants to share it, he can go right ahead. But let's hear, yeah, well, that's on you, Ted. But let's hear what
I'll just say, I get fed up hearing a lot of comments from our leaders about immigration, but I hope everybody comes back to our senses after November 3rd.
Oh, please, please. I'm like holding my breath as we all wait for that. Yes, I must admit, when I first think of, or when I think about immigration, I think about politics, politicians, the wall, and you know, what's been going on in America, even just recently.
Right.
Other comments, what did you think of with the word immigration?
I thought of the fact that a person or people need to move, and they have various reasons for that. And these people are very stressed as they move. They are very courageous, they are risk takers, and they have hopefulness.
Yes, I love it. I can't imagine, you know, some of the things that people have done to immigrate, even to America or to other countries. Sure. Other responses?
Are we drawing a distinction between legal and illegal? Because that description that the participant just said sounded very much like an illegal type.
You would have to ask Loretta if she was making a distinction between. Were you, Loretta? You're still on mute, Loretta.
No, I wasn't really making a distinction. I was just trying to think really generally, why does somebody become an immigrant? But I have to say, the picture I would have in my mind of these qualities would certainly be about people who are termed illegal.
Well,
Not
it-
that
it-
any human being is illegal.
I was just focusing on the risk element.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. So you see how, as we discuss, as we talk, as we hear what other people think, as we question what they're saying, we think more about it. I'm sorry, Antonia, were you going to say something? And feel free to raise your hand, and so that I see you. There's a lot going on in the chat, and I must admit I haven't been able to follow it all. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, I was just, thinking on the simple level, going from one place to another. I wanted to start thinking of all the complications, but I said, you know what, make this simple. You're always thinking too deeply, Tonya. And so I just said going from one place to another and left it at that. But with the idea behind your critical thinking, I see how that is really great. Because as an individual, we think differently. Then you speak to somebody, they bring another perspective, you say, oh, and then as a group, you get more diversified variety of ideas and perceptions, and that enriches you as an individual.
I love it. Thank you. I mean, I think that's the benefit of being able to talk to others. We're all unique. We all have amazing backgrounds, experiences, knowledge, and we each see things differently. And then we put it all together. And so it was funny. I was talking about somebody about this process, and they said, that's think, pair, share. And I said, you know what? It sure is. They tried to make it all difficult. And I'm like, yeah, it's something we used to do in elementary school. Think, pair, share. That's exactly what it is. So giving them time to think on their own, doing it with someone else, and then doing it as a group. Want to keep going because we've got a couple things I really want to get to. Ask higher level questions. This is huge, huge. You've got to learn how to ask higher level questions. And it was interesting in the presentation this morning, she was talking about Bloom's taxonomy, and I was like, and there we go. You should really take some time and become familiar with Bloom's taxonomy and understand that there are levels and different types of questions, and how do you get to that higher level. But I don't know if you remember in elementary school, and this one let me pull up my chat. In elementary school, we learned that questions start with. And then they told us all these things that questions start with. So I want you to type in the chat, what do questions start with?
Do you mean a word?
Yep. What are the words that questions start with?
Okay.
Yep, the 5 W's. I love it. Yes, yes, yes. There we go. I think it's hilarious that, yes, that we all grew up probably in different places, different states, different schools, but we all know it. Who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. I mean, Bloom's taxonomy is great, but in a pinch, you're not going to remember it. You're going to remember who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. And it's funny because those questions are actually set up in a pyramid. The lowest level are the beginning. Who, very factual. What, very factual. When, very factual. But then when you get to why and how are your higher level questions. So I used to tell teachers all the time, just ask why. If you can turn it into a why question, you are at the higher level. I think it's funny, as children, they ask why all the time, and we tell them to stop it. I don't know. Stop asking me why. I don't know why. I don't know. But they are asking those questions that are at the higher level. And that's all you have to do. Ask why. So this is where our poem comes in. So where do these questions come from? They've got to come from something. I mean, they could come from an article that you're discussing in class. They can come from a math problem. They can come from a book. But we're going to use the poem, and your questions are going to come from this. So questions come from, and I would tell the students this as well, things that you don't understand, things that you think are important, or things that cause an emotion in you. I think it's interesting that we ask students, do you have any questions? And what do we get? Exactly that, silence.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because there's this stigma around, if I ask a question, I'm dumb, or if I ask a question, that means I didn't know something. So what? Somebody said something earlier today and I was like, I don't know it. And I'm okay with saying, I don't know what that is. That's the way that you grow, by saying, I don't know. Can you help me? And
So that's an interesting question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
You're fine.
But how do you get a student from being acculturated to, oh, if I ask a question, people think I'm dumb, to this freedom that you were just expressing about your ability to ask a question and not feeling stigmatized by it?
Definitely. I love that. And I'm open to hear what other people say. I'm going to start with one thing, and then I'd love to hear what other people think. But I think one thing is modeling. As an adult, when I can say, I don't know, they realize, oh, wait a minute, she's 50-some years old and she doesn't know? Yeah, I don't know. And the fact that I'm not embarrassed about it. I think they need to see that that's okay. Other suggestions, ideas for that?
Yeah, well, I was going to say same thing with my kids. They may think I'm the dumbest dad in the world because I'm always like, I don't know, like, help me understand. And I do that same thing in my class. I wrote in the comments, but I guess I'll say it here now.
Thank you.
We teach level 1, 2, and 3 questions in Avid, Costa's levels of questions. And a level 1 question, we usually take one finger and say, if you can point to it in the book, it's an easy question. We don't need those questions. Anybody can, find the answer in the text. So
awesome. Thank you.
Can I also add, this is Denise Cross.
Sure.
Sorry. Can I also add to what you said on top of it, and then afterwards say, let's look that up together. Because if you're modeling it, which is what I like to do, and say, I don't know, how about if we look it up?
Great. Awesome.
Okay. I tell the students that.
Okay, go ahead.
Chantal, I guess, is that?
Yeah, Chantal to the bush. So I teach foreign languages, okay, and what I state since the beginning of the first class, very often the students is their first approach to a foreign language, and the Roman language is so different from the English language that they have a lot of questions, but somehow the student, they feel their ignorance. So I waived that completely, and I told them that I love questions and I love answering, because for one question, there can be 5 different answers. If a student does not answer doesn't understand the first answer, I encourage them to ask them and ask them and ask them again, because each time I am repeating it different ways. And this is really great, and it worked very, very well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
To encourage them to say you have one question. For one question, you may have 5 different answers. It can be visual, it can be auditive, it can be problem solving and things like that. Like I said at the beginning, learning a language is based on critical thinking. You have to find a pattern. Then the vocabulary is nothing, but you have to find a pattern. And then all the students feel very comfortable, and they just ask all their questions.
Awesome. Wonderful. Antonia?
I'd like to follow up on Chantal, and I tell the students that when you ask a question, it shows you are thinking.
Yes.
You are intelligent, and that's the way we communicate. If we just say hello and don't say, how are you, everything stops. So
Great.
How are you leads to something else, leads to something else. And I always tell them, questions are wonderful.
Yes.
I say it from the get-go.
Great. I'm sorry, Antonio, trying to get you in. I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I am. I totally agree with everything everyone says. And not only that, questions help. I also tell them it gives me an idea into what you're thinking and what your reasoning are. And that's the only way I can give you a feedback or understand what might be a misconception. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to add to what everybody said on that. For us, or rather for me as a math person, what I do is when students ask questions, I say, let's go back into your notes. Because sometimes students don't know how to use their note to get information they need. And I said, okay, especially if that thing they're asking me, I've already explained it and it's in the note or where I solved the problem. I said, go back into your note. First of all, I direct them to try to do it themselves. If they can't, then I give them guidelines like, say, look at what question are you asking? What does it relate? Okay, what part of your note do you think we have to look for that? And then I make it so that everybody else can help. If that student can't help, then maybe another student, can you help him? Do you know where in your note that he can find that information? And they assess it themselves.
Okay.
Instead
Wonderful.
of me giving back the answer.
Sure.
Or telling them how to do it.
Thank you for all those ideas and suggestions. I think the reality is that in our educational system, they've been told that they're wrong so many times when they were young that they are afraid to ask questions, that they're like, I'm tired of being wrong and I just don't want to do it anymore. So I'm not going to say anything and I'm not going to ask a question. And so you do have to work on that a little bit. I was doing the Declaration of Independence with a group of students and I don't remember, 7th, 8th grade. And afterwards, oh my gosh, if you haven't read the Declaration of Independence in a while, I mean like $10 words, every other word. It's like, it's really deep. And so then I asked the students, any questions? Of course, I got, blank looks and, no, we're good. We got it. And I said, turn to your neighbor and ask a question. And all of a sudden, the room just exploded because they were like, okay, I don't have to admit to everybody I have a question, but I can admit it to the person next to me. And the person next to me is saying the same thing. And they're like, oh gosh, yeah, I didn't get that. So that's one way to take the stigma out. It doesn't have to be done in front of the whole class. Turn to a neighbor. There's another way. You could write it on a 3x5 card. Just tell them, if you have a question, write it on a 3x5 card and just, at the end of class, whatever, send it to me. Or you could even, being remote, send me a private chat. If you have a question, send it to me in a private chat. I won't say so-and-so has a question. I'll just say, oh, I see a question and the question is, and then you can use that. So think about ways that you can help them get beyond that stigma and realize that good learners ask questions. That's something that they need to understand and get rid of the stigma that you know everything. So I want you to develop questions. I want you to have an opportunity to turn something into a question, because another thing is good modeling of higher level questions. So I'm going to read the new Colossus to you. You can follow along or you can read it. You can mute me if you'd like to read it yourself, but I want you to be marking things, anything that you don't understand, anything that you think is important, anything that causes an emotion, because that's where questions and good high-level interpretive questions come from. Okay. The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Okay. Oops. I want you to take a minute, turn your notes into a question. Remember, why is your high level and how is a high level? Higher level questions.
Can you bring back the notes?
I don't think I can without stopping the clock. But anything you didn't understand, anything that caused an emotion, Ah, I love it. Some people are already typing in the chat. So I want you to go ahead and go to the chat and type a question that you created. Who is she? Who is she? Donna, can you be more specific about who is she? Are you talking? I'm not quite sure. What is the light? What is the woman telling?
I think I have an idea who she is, but I'm turning my thoughts into questions.
Okay. Who is, are you saying who is the speaker? Are you talking who is the poem about?
Yes,
Who is the poem about? Okay. Remember our levels. Who, what, when, where, why. Who, it's a lower level. What, a little bit better. When, why and how. Why and how are our highest level of questions. So those are what you're trying to do. Ted, did you fall asleep on us?
I just wrote something.
Just resting your eyes. Just.
Oh God, I'm gonna cover myself.
Okay, let's see. Is she trying to lead needy people to freedom? Why might this cause a sense of irony in African Americans? Yes. I love it. They're going so fast. I love it. Why does the author choose to compare the two structures? Why is a woman used in the poem? I love it. Why did the author choose to compare the two statues? How come she knows the perils of the newcomers? I love it. Oh my gosh, you get it. You're getting it. I'm seeing why. And, oh my goodness. Okay. So you're getting the idea of it. A good high level question, why or how? And I think our students they've been doing what we've been doing. What, when, and because that's what we've been modeling. Now we need to model why and how, and they will get to that next level. My time. Okay, and then create higher level projects. This was the other email that I sent you about Bloom's taxonomy. It just takes the levels and it creates some projects on the different levels. And so think about, or when you're creating a project, where does your project land? Because again, that's the critical thinking. Are you at that higher level? Discussion is the higher level. It's analyzing and evaluating. So how much discussion are you using in the classroom and things like that? So be thinking about that. I think we made it. All righty. And I want to leave a little bit of time for any questions or comments. You got all of 5 minutes.
Deb,
yes.
I just want to say I'm just so encouraged by the participants' questions and comments that were made. And I think you saying to everybody, why is the critical question, because if you focus on the why, you're going to come up with some really deep thinking. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you, Bev. I'm going to say something, but if you want to make a comment, please feel free to jump in. I see the chat's happening. Great session. Oh, thanks. If you have not started using Padlet or aware of Padlet, I love it. It's just an easy way to share information. I know. All right, Donna. It's free. At least you get 3 for free. I'm struggling because now I want more and I have to juggle information. I'm like, but I really want to save this one. And but I put the Padlet in the link at the very beginning. That if you wanted to go and I'm going to upload the PowerPoint there and I'll email it to everybody. But if you didn't register for my course and you just happen to be here, you won't be on that list. But you can always send me an email. Oh, just some of the things I referenced. I'll put this in the, it'll be in the presentation as well. But you can email me at pgcc, just my last name, Bowles, which I spelled wrong in the little thing. DM. I just noticed that. I'm like, my name is spelled wrong. Who did that? Oh, me.
You got a digestive problem.
That's funny.
But
your students will get mixed up if you do that.
I know, right? People call me Bowles all the time, even though it is L-E-S. I'm like, people, L-E-S. Reading is fundamental. Okay. But I have had a wonderful time with you. Thank you for all your comments, ideas, suggestions. Continue to think about how you can use critical thinking in the classroom, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit.